I knew something was off the moment Todd winked at me like he was doing me a damn favor. He slid the envelope across the table like it was a golden ticket, leaned back in his fake leather chair, and said, "Swear to God, we're saving you from taxes." 9 years. 9 long years of hauling this place, Norbridge Freight, through supply chain hell, surviving 3 mergers, 2 system overhauls, and 1 full-blown warehouse flood. And now this clown hands me a 1099, like I'm his gig worker. My throat went dry before I even opened the envelope. I stared at the return address. HR had bundled it with my year-end packet. Benefits summary, PTO balance, the usual boilerplate. And tucked in, like a little time bomb, was this damn form. Not a W-2. Not my regular, earned W-2. But a bright, glaring 1099. My hands actually shook when I unfolded it. No explanation, no warning, nothing. Just a quiet demotion in disguise. I looked up at Todd, who was already nose-deep in his protein shake and some stupid spreadsheet he probably didn't even understand. "Is this a mistake?" I asked, calm as I could manage. He smirked. "Nope. It's a strategic shift. More flexible, more efficient. You're still part of the family." His eyes didn't even meet mine when he said it. "Besides," he added, "you'll make more now. Think of the write-offs." Like I give a rat's ass about write-offs when I've just been stripped of my health insurance, 401k, and any legal protection if something goes sideways. The worst part wasn't the form, it was the joke, "We're saving you from taxes." Like I should thank him for legally reclassifying me without notice, discussion, or a single change in my damn job. I still worked the same hours, still reported to the same supervisor, still logged in from the same company laptop, used the same punch clock. Nothing had changed, except now they didn't owe me protections, benefits, or even overtime. I didn't even argue. You learn in logistics that yelling doesn't fix the jam, it just makes the truck late. So I nodded, smiled, took the packet, and walked out of that office like it wasn't burning behind me. I went home that night and just sat in my car for 15 full minutes before I even got out, wondering what I had done with the last decade of my life. I knew right then, the fight wasn't about the job. It was about the principle. I was going to find out how to dismantle a house of cards that had just fallen on my head. I made a drink, pulled up the IRS website, and searched difference between W-2 and 1099. That rabbit hole got deep, real quick. Turns out, there's a whole damn checklist, behavioral control, financial control, relationship of the parties. According to every line I read, I wasn't a contractor, I was a damn employee, plain and simple. No contractor gets told when to show up, what uniform to wear, which system to use, what script to read to clients, and then gets paid on a strict payroll schedule. But I did, every week like clockwork. I wasn't running my own business, I was running theirs. The legal reality was a slap in the face. A W-2 employee is protected. The company pays half of Social Security and Medicaid tax. A 1099 contractor pays both halves, meaning I was now on the hook for an extra 7.65% of my total earnings, the dreaded self-employment tax. I wasn't reading IRS guidelines. I was reading a checklist of every reason I'd just gotten screwed without lube. They wanted to duck out of their legal responsibilities, and they passed the entire financial bill to me. And they had the nerve to say they were saving me. I spent hours reading horror stories from people who'd been hit with back taxes and penalties all because their employer pulled the same stunt. Norbridge Freight, a billion-dollar company, was committing systemic fraud and hiding behind my tax liability. They had not issued me a contractor agreement in 9 years. I clocked in. I wore their boots. I trained their people. I wasn't independent. I was deeply embedded. This wasn't a clerical error. It was a setup, a financial trap designed to squeeze 9 years of loyalty into a disposable line item. They had underestimated the quiet man in logistics. What really made my stomach turn was the realization that they had deliberately made me financially responsible for their fraud, and they had the balls to call it a favor. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to fix my own problem, I was going to document theirs. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I printed Todd's email, the one with the saving you from taxes line, folded it neatly, scanned a copy, emailed it to myself, and then, just to be safe, uploaded it to my personal Google Drive. Redundancy is key in logistics. This was the smoking gun, the proof of intent. I emailed Todd one more time, trying to keep it civil. I asked for clarification. Was this permanent? Was there a contractor agreement? Under what conditions? He replied in less than 5 minutes, short and smug, no greeting, no explanation. Relax, we've done this before. You're still part of the family. It's just better this way. I stated that line, part of the family. What kind of family kicks you in the ribs and hands you the medical bill? What kind of family strips your legal protections while pretending they're doing you a favor? I realized that his flippant replies were gold. He was confirming everything in writing. His own words, the very proof of his casual arrogance, were now my quiet weapon. I created a new folder on my desktop called Paper Trail and dragged in every digital crumb I could think of, old W2S, schedules, memos, and, most importantly, Todd's dismissive emails. And then, without even really deciding to, I opened the state labor website. Filing the report felt like ordering takeout. Click, scroll, attach, done. No courtroom drama, no blinking red light, or dramatic gavel slamming down, just a government website that looked like it hadn't been updated since dial-up internet. I filled out the boxes that asked, was there a formal contractor agreement? No. Did you work set hours under supervision? Yes. Were you provided equipment? Yes. And finally, do you believe you were misclassified? Oh, hell yes. I uploaded Todd's email, the one about saving me from taxes, and hit submit. The confirmation screen was insultingly bland. Thank you. Your submission has been received. You may be contacted. That was it. No sirens. No knock at the door. Just silence. I sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the screen. Did I just make a mistake? Did I just nuke my own future out of some misguided sense of justice? I was vibrating, part nerves, part regret. For a moment, I actually considered logging back in and seeing if I could retract the complaint. But then I opened Todd's email one more time, read that line again, part of the family, and I thought, if this is family, then someone better call child services. I closed the laptop. One small click, one quiet room, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something big had just started. I wasn't expecting justice. I was expecting an invoice. 3 weeks passed like nothing. Business as usual on the surface. Same warehouse hum, same clanking of pallet jacks, same cheap coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard. But under all that noise, something subtle had shifted. The first clue, Kim from payroll stopped making eye contact. The same woman who used to talk my ear off about her candle-making side hustle now avoided me like I was covered in smallpox. Then the whisper started. Quiet, careful murmurs. Someone mentioned the payroll processor had reached out with a routine request for time cards. Not just mine, but 5 years' worth. Every time someone clocked in, clocked out, called out sick, all of it. That kind of digging didn't come from curiosity, it came from panic. HR held a mandatory meeting in the break room that Friday. Todd stood at the front with that same bullshit confidence he wore like cologne. We're undergoing a periodic review, he announced. Just a few audits to make sure our records are up to date. Nothing to worry about. Right, because 5-year-old time cards suddenly needing review screams normal operations. The silence in that room was heavy. No one said my name. No one had to. I just sat in the corner, sipping cold coffee, my face ice blank, unbothered, like I hadn't set the whole thing in motion with one quiet click. I wasn't smiling, wasn't gloating. I was just watching the unraveling start, seeing the gears slip, the little cracks widen. This wasn't joy. It was quieter. It was the sober satisfaction of watching the truth do the work for me. Then Todd finally called a meeting. Let's all gather in the break room real quick, he said over the intercom, his voice straining to sound casual. He stood by the whiteboard, flanked by ally from legal and some outside guy in a sharp suit. Todd was holding a yellow folder tight enough to snap it in two. Don't panic, he started, which of course meant we all should. He tried to sell it as a routine check by the state's labor board. I stared at the folder in his trembling hand. Official letterhead was peeking out of the top. I couldn't read much, but a bolded line near the middle caught my eye, just 3 words in quotes, we're saving you from taxes. My chest went cold. That was it. The line. His line. The one he thought was clever. The one he tossed off like a joke while tossing me into a tax mess. They quoted it word for word, and there it was, sitting in his trembling hands like a lit stick of dynamite with his name carved into the fuse. That line was the kill shot. Not speculation, not suspicion. Proof, in his own words, signed, dated, delivered. I didn't smile, didn't flinch, just let that quiet surge roll through me like a heat wave no one else could feel. Afterward, I walked past Legal's corner office and saw the folder open on the desk. The audit, it said, was no longer limited to current classifications. It was going retroactive 7 years deep. Todd's cost-saving measure had just been rebranded as systemic misclassification fraud. The bleeding had started. First, a text from Rhonda, a former night shift lead. I just got a letter from the labor board. Says I'm owed $11,238 in back pay. The state wasn't speculating anymore. They were certifying damages, calculating reparations, and enforcing judgment. Inside Norbridge, things got weird fast. Payroll froze for 3 days. One guy in accounting swore Legal pulled $400,000 from reserves just to cover the first wave of compliance fees. Even the coffee budget vanished. We went from K-cups to instant powder overnight. Then came the leaks. It started with a single forwarded email, an internal memo from the legal team marked privileged, do not distribute. Of course it got distributed. Word for word, it read, we have evidence that senior leadership was aware of classification inconsistencies. Todd's March 2020 email thread includes acknowledgement of non-compliant contractor terms. Recommend preparing defense strategy. Translated, Todd knew, and he did it anyway. By Thursday, one of the forklift drivers, who didn't know what compliance meant a month ago, walked past me and muttered, "If it was you, good." He didn't smile, just said it like a prayer and kept walking. Then the final notice appeared, a lean notice taped to the front security desk. State of Ohio, notice of tax delinquency. Asset freeze in effect. They wanted everyone to see it. The state wasn't asking anymore. They were taking. By week 7 of the unraveling, Norbridge wasn't reviewing compliance issues. It was in full-blown collapse. They brought in a crisis attorney, some big-name fixer from a downtown firm. He showed up in an overpriced suit with a briefcase that looked more like a weapon than a document holder. They held the meeting in conference room C, blinds drawn. The lawyer didn't even last 10 minutes before things went sideways. He read from the official state notice like it was the Book of Revelation, voice crisp at first, then cracking around paragraph 3. He hit the line and just stopped. He turned to Todd, pale, motionless, gripping the table edge, and said, in a voice almost too quiet to hear, "You just bankrupted us." The room stayed silent for a long time after that. Later that day, another document surfaced, buried in the audit appendix, a 2-year-old email from Todd to a former CFO, flagged by investigators for its casual arrogance. The subject line, Loophole City. The body read, "Even if someone squeals, we'll never get caught. It's gray area. Just keep him off payroll and call it flexibility." That line was cited directly in the audit summary. I didn't need a parade. I didn't need revenge. That quote alone was worth every sleepless night, every moment I'd questioned whether filing that complaint was a mistake. They hadn't just gotten caught. They confessed in writing years ago and still did it anyway. The whole corporate giant had been brought down, not by a hostile takeover, but by an invisible, 9U employee and the quiet truth. The email came in at 6:07 a.m. Subject line, Operational Restructuring and Strategic Adjustments. That's how they worded the polite obituary for a company choking on its own arrogance. The body was simple. Norbridge was laying off over 60% of its staff, effective immediately. No severance mentioned. By 9, a second memo hit. Todd was stepping aside as CEO, pending the outcome of internal compliance assessments. The phrase was so sterilized it could have been written in a lab. From what I heard, Todd lost it, blamed legal for not burying the memos faster. Legal pointed the finger at HR for improperly managing the contractor files. HR threw it right back, citing direct orders from Todd's inbox. A perfect triangle of blame, all wrapped in policy jargon. Meanwhile, I was 2 cities away, sitting in a modest little office with my name etched on the door, compliance advisor. Not flashy, not loud, but permanent. Mine. My new firm specialized in worker classification audits for mid-size companies trying not to end up like Norbridge. Every day, I helped people do the thing Todd thought he was too clever to bother with: follow the damn law. The truth hit me then, clearer than any audit report. This was never just about taxes. This was about respect. They hadn't just misclassified me, they'd misjudged me, thought I was quiet enough to ignore, safe enough to cheat, invisible enough to erase. The final piece of news arrived a month later, quiet as a mouse. Headline: Norbridge Freight files for Chapter 11 protection. I stayed at it for a long moment, the same way you might look at a house you used to live in that's now just charred wood and yellow tape. No surprise, no shock, just confirmation. The final box checked. I had just received a final letter from the state. Your submission directly resulted in full enforcement action. Case closed. No fanfare, no certificate, just confirmation. 30 seconds later, a buzz from Lewis, the forklift driver. The warehouse is empty. It's over. I took a sip of my coffee. Still hot, still bitter, still mine. I typed one line back, told them I wasn't a contractor. No emoji, no punctuation. Just the truth.